Hey, Clemson family. What if Alabama's head coaching vacancy, which I think was a little surprising, is going to be filled by Dabo Swinney? I don't think either of us is going to predict that it will be today, but we will get into some of the reasons why he should be on their short list and why he might be willing to listen more than meets the surface.
I'm Daniel Shirley. What if the Clemson basketball team misses the NCAA tournament once again? Dot dot dot.
Oh, baseball season's only a month away, as you pointed
Baseball
out.
season's only a month away. That's right.
Oh, goodness. I'm Bill Zimmerman. Welcome to the Reign Supreme Hallway podcast. We're off to a banner start here. You can catch us at youtube.com/Clemson Cookoff. We love it when you comment, add your thoughts on everything we talk about, fill in the gaps that we may have missed. Tell us where we're idiots. Tell us where we're smart. Just keep it family friendly. That's all we ask. YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Go back and see all our old episodes, like the things we said about the basketball team down the stretch last year, perhaps, although that may sound a lot like what we're about to say. But I think the biggest thing on every Clemson fan's mind right now is who will lead Alabama into the 2024 college football season, because it may have an impact on who leads Clemson into the 2024 college football season. Again, not the top prediction that I would make, and I'm not sure right now with Oregon's Dan Lanning having declined the job, who really is the top candidate out there. There's a few names kind of muddled, all worthy of consideration, including one William Christopher Sweeney, who played college football at Alabama, started his coaching career at Alabama, has never hidden, nor should he, his love for his alma mater and all it meant to him, and the ways it helped him and his family during a very difficult time in his life. He should be fond of it, just like I am so fond of having been fortunate enough to attend Clemson, be around extended family that I have up there. Meet meet this guy. There he is. Meet this guy, and just figure out, life in general. I mean, Dabo Swinney believes in that, and that his experience, I think, really shapes what happens. He could do that at Alabama, and perhaps, and here's reason one I would say he might consider it, is when you see some of the Clemson guys leaving via the transfer portal, especially the talented ones. I won't get into current names so much, but when think back to Darian Kendrick, right? Like, could things have been worked out there to keep him around with a deeper NIL coffer? What about some of the players who did hit the portal this year and have already landed in new spots? Could they have been kept in the fold and still be working on their Clemson education and still be working on becoming starters for this Clemson football team had there been some more NIL money to go around? The well is deeper at Alabama. It all starts with Dabo Swinney loves Alabama, but I think there are some practical reasons that he might have to consider it. And I don't think he would go there and just start, treating the portal like Mike Norvell does and bring in 14 guys a year. I don't think he would lead his high school recruiting with an NIL pitch either. I'm having trouble speaking, so I'm going to kick it over to Daniel. But I can see where the ways that Dabo Swinney does think NIL fits into a college football program, the well would be deeper and it would help him advance his cause.
Look, if Dabo Swinney leaves to go to Alabama, who could blame him? Who could blame him? I mean, like you said, your alma mater means something to you. You know, my son just graduated, Ben graduated from Clemson. That meant something to me. And they announced, when we were during the graduation ceremony, they said, if you graduated from Clemson, please stand up. I stood up. And my wife was like, I almost started tearing up at that point. So
Wow.
I mean, that means something to
Yeah.
people. So I think that you understand the pull. Is it the right fit? We would find out. I mean, you can't. Bill, I don't live in a hypothetical world. We can guess all we want. We will never know unless he actually goes. We will never know if it's the right move or the wrong move unless he actually goes. You just can't. Um, so we could talk about coaching hires and all that all until we're blue in the face, and we have in the past, but we don't know until it happens. But I will say, if he leaves, I don't think, I don't think Clemson people want him to leave. I'm not saying that. But
Just a
if
few
he
message
leaves,
board trolls. That's about the
right,
extent of that, I think.
you don't listen to those idiots anyway.
No,
But if he leaves, you can't be upset with the decision. You can be upset how it impacts you as a Clemson fan that now he's not going to be the head coach, and you think, oh my goodness, who's going to be the next head coach? Can he continue what this run that Clemson's been on? That's fair. I'll give you the reaction of a Clemson of the Clemson side of it. What I will say is I don't know that Clemson would be national championship program worthy under the next head coach. Who knows? We didn't think that was going to be the case under Dabo Swinney. But when people talk to me about elite college football programs, my first thought is, have you won a title under two coaches? Because if you have, that shows there's a culture there, right, of winning.
right.
If look, Nick Saban won 6 times. There would be a culture of winning at Alabama, but they've won it under several head coaches. USC's won it several head coaches. Texas, several, Michigan, all these schools, Georgia, all the schools that you would think of. And then there's others, obviously Penn State, Joe Paterno won, they won, but there are teams that are exceptions to that rule. But look at LSU. LSU had 3 straight coaches who won national titles. That's that's impossible to do. Yeah. So I don't think Clemson would go anywhere. In a 12-team playoff, I think Clemson would be in the hunt 9 years out of 10. And all you need to do is what Bill Parcells say, get in the tournament.
Yeah.
Right? So you can be happy for him, and you can be, what's going to happen with Clemson? That's fine, but I don't think it's not going back to the Tommy West days and the Ken Hatfield days. I just don't see that. I think they've built up too much, and they are too invested. Bill, the end of our college tenure when we were in school, I don't think Clemson was invested in being great in football.
Right.
It is now. And that now, does that because of Dabo? Sure. But there's too many people who are invested in it now for it to fall off the face of the earth. Again, national championship, 2 out of 3 years, probably not. But maybe. We don't know. You just don't know until you get to that point. So, yeah, it's like I was talking to my sons when Michigan won last week. If you're a Michigan fan and Jim Harbaugh does go to the NFL, like a lot of people think he will, can you be upset? He took you from being irrelevant to a national title, and he's your guy.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can be upset. You just wish him well. And Dabo could go to Bama and coach for 15 more years if he wanted to. And you just, now it might stink if you're a Clemson fan for a little bit, but I don't think that the program's going to fall off the face of the earth without him. Now you got to get the right coach.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you have to get the right coach in place. You can't just hire somebody and say, "Hey, we're Clemson. We're always going to win." That's not true. It's about the coach and the alignment with the president and the AD, and they have all that now. I think it's a long shot that he leaves, but if he did, hey, thank you for 15 great years, and the years before that as an assistant.
Right.
Look at all the new buildings on campus. I mean, Dabo printed money for the last decade, and the university has reaped the benefits of that. I think you just have to say it's understandable that he went to Alabama and you move on. Now, look, if he had gone to A&M, remember all the rumors about A&M this summer? Yeah. Then that's different. That's different. But going back to Alabama, I don't think you could have a problem with that if you're a Clemson fan.
No, exactly. And I never bought into the A&M thing. And It's just hard in general to buy into Swinney wanting to leave. Also, here's what I've said for years, since the start of the playoff run and leading up to it. And, you know, will Dabo Swinney, be the replacement guy for Saban? It's just inevitable and they just go seamless. Well, you know, I don't know that Dabo Swinney needs to be the guy who replaces the great. I've always said he more likely would be the guy who replaces the guy who tried to replace the great, right? And Bama is talking to some coaches that will be very solid and very strong hires. Will they be able to duplicate that success? Will they be able to transition from what Nick Saban did to what those guys do? Would Dabo Swinney be able to transition into the way he does it? I think it would be a little more seamless for Swinney than some other guys, just because I don't think Saban gets enough credit for really wanting, even though it will process out a guy who can't play. I think those guys who play, he does want to develop them into young men. And I think Dabo Swinney would be plug and play in that regard, and also, bring that extent of, hey, just because you're third string your first 2 years doesn't mean you're leaving. You could, as he loves to say, flip that switch, your senior year, your grad student year, whatever it might be. And we are invested in keeping you around throughout that tenure. That Saban and a lot of other coaches look at it more as that series of 1 year renewable scholarships. And if you're not producing, you might not get that scholarship renewed. You might be encouraged to hit the portal and find a better fit or what have you. Dabo Swinney's not in that business, and I think it would be very interesting to see how he would manage that lesser roster turnover, but also be able to go get a guy who he really wants out of the portal and have those resources. Swinney has recruited the portal. He has come up empty quite a bit of the times, or the assistants have, or Danny Pearman has, or, the program has come up empty a lot under Dabo Swinney at the start of the portal era. Is that a chicken or egg thing? Has he reduced who he goes after because the money's not there, or is the money not there because he's not terribly interested in going after more than a handful of players? We would certainly find out if he got to Alabama, because the resources are there for him to be able to do that. The other thing I'll talk about is Clemson has spent a lot of effort and money in recent years adding facilities for non-revenue sports. Well, I would say softball has a chance to be a revenue sport. The support there is just fantastic. Other schools are turning a profit off of softball. You see lacrosse, you see, women's golf still fairly new. You see gymnastics coming in. All these teams that are on the up and rising in the Clemson athletics department. If Dabo Swinney were to stay, you might see some of those financial outlays to get those programs established sliding over into the ability to provide more NIL. The new 110 Society initiative to sort of reset Clemson's NIL approach rather than using the Tiger Impact group that they had set up, program they had set up. It's just hard to imagine. Like, I looked around for the image at the start of this with Dabo Swinney's face on it. It's hard to find him in neutral colors. He's almost wearing orange all the time. He's almost always wearing purple. He's almost always got a paw. And you kind of, for an episode like this of he may be at a crossroads in his career. I think if he declines Alabama this time, or if Bama doesn't talk to him, it's not the end of the road for that discussion. I think Clemson is going to benefit from this year's recruiting class, last year's freshman class. The talent is being restocked. The program is on the rise again. 12-team playoff, you can get in a lot easier. Florida State has a ton of turnover to deal with. None of the other ACC programs really have a solid and strong and steady footing right now. I know you're not a Mario Cristobal fan. They may have the second best footing in the conference as far as football goes. We'll see what Florida State can do to restock. They probably still are second best. I know you'll believe Miami when you see it, but that's how I feel about Louisville. That's how I feel about North Carolina. Duke lost Mike Elko. Let's see what they can do. I mean, on and on and on, just over and over. There's flux everywhere else. Clemson should want Dabo Swinney. They should try to keep Dabo Swinney. You have to hope that Dabo Swinney wants to stay here and that Alabama doesn't pull out every single last stop to bring him in.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Don't
That's
forget
good.
Stanford and Cal and SMU, by the way. We can't forget those. They're now in the
They're in the
ACC.
Pac-12 and
They're in the Pac ACC is what they're in. And I'm
talk
not
about
a
graphics I had
hold on.
trouble building, right?
Yeah. Hold on. And hold on now. Don't get the Miami fans after me. I'm not a Mario Cristobal fan.
No, I know.
I gotta believe it. I gotta see it before I believe it fan.
Right.
And that's about just that program in general. And I'm with look, I think Clemson's the favorite to win the ACC in 2024. I do. Jordan Travis is gone, right? I mean, Jared
Oh, but
Verse
they got
gone.
DJ Oyunglele.
Jared
Ton of
Verse is
experience.
Jared
Strong
Verse
arm.
is. Let me finish and stop picking at my. Jared Verse is gone. I mean, we saw all those transfers who came in and had a great year, absolutely great year, not taking anything away from that. And there's nothing wrong with how they won. I don't think that's how they want to do it 2 years from now. That's how they had to do it. But are they going to be able to back that up with a whole new, you know, group of players and freshmen and all that? So Clemson will have a much more veteran team than Florida State. They'll have a much more settled team. Now, they also got to stop turning the ball over. And we saw them stop turning it over for the most part,
True.
the last 5 games. I really think 4-4 to 9-4 says a lot about this program, says a lot about the culture of this program. 4-4, they could have thrown it in. They could have thrown in the towel. They could have ended up 6-7-6. And, now they didn't beat great teams down the stretch. That's fine.
That Notre Dame one was
But they
not
beat
bad.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They beat good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Who can make for good games. And they beat some good quarterbacks in that run. And then had that bonkers fourth quarter against Kentucky in the bowl game. But look, I don't think Dabo's leaving. Right? I think he sees the upside of the program. I think he wants to prove to people that this, the consensus around the country is Clemson's done. Right? It is. I mean, look.
Yeah. No, you're right,
it
and
is.
they're wrong.
It is that Clemson's done. Right? Bill, you and I have seen Clemson be done. We sat through 3-8.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Danny Ford went 6-6 one year and then bounced back. This is more of that than it is Tommy West, Ken Hatfield, Tommy Bowden, whatever you want to say about. And I know you and I disagree a lot about Tommy Bowden.
Right.
But what is done, right? Is Clemson ever going to win 2 national titles in 3 years? The odds are probably not good. They never had before.
Right.
So I'm not talking about that. How many teams have won 2 national titles in 3 years? The list is not long.
No.
So, that's okay. But what are your expectations as a Clemson fan? To be in the hunt, to have a chance. And I think this team next year, there's 2 keys, right? Cade Klubnik, make better decisions. And then the whole team in general stop turning the ball over. Yeah. They do that, they will be in the playoff next year. Now, will they be a number 1 seed? Will they host? Will they squeeze in, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever? I don't know. But I know Stuart Mandel at my boss at The Athletic, he did his not too early top 25. Everybody does them. He had them as a top 4 seed because he had them winning the ACC, and that's how that works.
Yeah.
Right? If you win the ACC, I think his top 4 were Clemson, not in this order. I think it was Georgia 1, but the other ones were Oregon winning the Big 10, Utah winning the Big 12, and Clemson, and then Georgia. So, I mean, all you got to do is win the ACC, and you're a top 4 seed. So it doesn't matter how many games you lose. You win the ACC. It's like the basketball tournament now. So I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And if look, I mean seriously, for all the quote done people, if they don't somehow just lose their minds against South Carolina in 2022, they're in the playoff.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, would they have
Studer
gotten the
just runs the
brakes
ball.
beaten off of them? Probably. Maybe by Georgia, they would have gotten beat bad. Who knows? Again, that's hypotheticals. But
Right.
that's how close they are.
Yeah.
Look at the games they lost this year. Outside of Duke, which again was a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Florida State game, they outplayed Florida State the whole game.
Yeah.
And they should have won. Miami, I don't know what that was. And it still was an overtime game. NC State, I don't know what that was. And it still was close.
Worst loss of the year of the 4.
NC State?
Yeah.
Yeah. And NC State turned into a pretty damn good team by the end of the year.
Mm.
Well, record was.
Yeah.
So they're not that far off.
Yeah.
And again, that's not me saying it as a Clemson graduate. Stuart Mandel wrote it. And Stuart has been critical of Dabo. That's fine.
Has he? I hadn't noticed.
It's okay. It's okay to be critical of him.
Sure.
We're all allowed to disagree of stuff. But, David Hood at TigerNet wrote a piece on their site last week. And he said, Clemson's not far away. And I think he's probably right. And, again, you just got to, especially going into a 12-team playoff, what's a good season?
Make the playoff.
You go 10-2, make the playoff. We have to reconfigure our brains as college football fans.
Right.
It's more like the NFL than it ever has been. Now, some people don't like that. That's fine. But you go 10-2 and win the ACC championship, you're in the playoff. And you're a top 4 seed. You're sitting at home the first week. Yeah. I think, we've got to get over the hot takey talk. And we love to overreact in college football, right?
Right.
We have to because they only play once a week. We got to have something to talk about for 5 days.
Well, let's try not with 3 minutes left. Let's try not to overreact to Clemson basketball. Terrence Oglesby, friend of the program, has pointed out that, hey, every team goes through losing skids or loses games. The Tigers are not looking great right now with losses to Miami, North Carolina, Virginia Tech in a row, and Virginia Tech, maybe the least excusable of those 3. And I know you've watched it a lot more closely than I have, Daniel. What are you seeing with that team?
Well, I ranted too long about football, so we can't rant too long about basketball. Sorry about that.
Might be saving us from ourselves.
Here's my thing. Look, I love T.O. T.O. knows more about basketball than I'll ever know. He was a great player. He knows the game in and out. He's great on field of 68. He's a great analyst. My problem with this team, Bill, is they don't defend. And defense is effort. This is the best offensive team Clemson has had in most versatile, most fun to watch offensive team Clemson's had in Brownell's 15 years. And it's not close for me. But they don't defend. And maybe they can't defend. I don't know. But they get beat up top on the ball with the ball handler, and then that breaks down the entire defense.
Yeah.
And you cannot succeed by not with no defense. I don't care what sport it is. You can't just outscore the other team.
Right.
I don't care if it's baseball with pitching. I don't care if it's football. I don't care if it's basketball. You have to play some defense. And they got beat. Listen, Bill, they gave up 60.5 to Miami, and they gave up 50.5 to Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
That's effort. That is effort, and it's lacking. And don't ask me. Listen to Brad Brownell talk about him. Listen to the exasperation in his voice talking about this team. They're in trouble, and they're in deep trouble. Now, can they get out of it? Yes.
There's time.
They absolutely can. This could be a blip. But what if it's not a blip? And what if it is signs of there's something seriously wrong with this team?
Yep. Just real quick to touch on what you said, I was on Twitter and people were saying, "Oh, Miami shot lights out. What can you do?" I'm like, "Well, maybe if you defend better, they don't shoot lights out.
Right.
Maybe you have to challenge them." So there is a way to counter a team that shoots well, but this is out on tape, and so they've got to get in there and fix it. I know they're missing Alex Hemingway and they're missing Clark, and they've got bodies to get back. They got some work to do though, for sure. And it'll be interesting to watch between now and baseball season. YouTube.com/Clemson kickoff. Comment. Tell us where we're boneheads. Tell us where we may have missed something. Check out our past episodes. Subscribe so you don't miss one in the future. And until our next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.